Robbie, let me know when you want ACTV to start recording or to start playing.
Okay, well, I can hear Commissioner White out there trying to talk to you. Can you hear him?
I cannot.
Okay, I'm gonna go tell.
I can,
They need to, I think
are
they need to
live, Robbie.
unmute. Hold on one second. Hey, Brian.
Yes.
Jerry's having issues with that box you brought up here. We're not able to hear him speak.
Is it muted? Make sure the mute or the volume, there's a volume, turn the volume up and then make sure it's not muted.
No. All right, I'm gonna go out there and say it so everybody can just hear us out there. I can't hear him on that. All right. We turned that machine off and now I have Commissioner White out here with me. There's Jerry. So, can y'all hear us?
Yes, you sound good.
yes, I could hear.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, with that being said, Jerry White, you ever gonna call this budget meeting to order? Is everybody set? Do we have a quorum? How many do we have, Brian?
Everybody.
Is everybody on board?
Yes, I believe everybody's here at this moment. I have 20 in the room.
Okay, with that being said then, we're gonna call this budget meeting to order, and we're gonna ask Robbie to come over with our cash and fund balance to start with. And then after he gets through, we're gonna ask, or I'm gonna entertain a motion that we accept this agenda as presented. And we'll ask questions about it, but I'm going to entertain that motion after we get there with our cash and fund balance. So at this time, Robbie, go ahead.
All right, guys. In our cash and fund balance report, our unassigned fund balance is 3.6 million. Our total fund balance is 7.5 million and cash is at 13.4 million. And cash is about the same as last year, but we did take and move 3 million, like I said last month, to the 171 fund. So we're in good shape with cash. Our sales tax, in February, we collected $320,847, which was up 30% from last February. So we're still getting good numbers with sales tax, but I do expect that to drop. Maybe not next month, but they're predicting changes in May and June. So that's something to keep an eye on. And then our EMS report, after 75% of our budget has been, after March, which is 75% of our year, they have collected 78% of their revenue and they've only spent 70% of their expenditures. So they have a surplus right now of $257,413. So they're doing really well being conservative with their spending. So that's all I have on the cash and fund balance and EMS report. Does anybody have any questions? I guess we're good. Okay. So right now we're gonna jump into the budget amendment part of this. And what Mr. White was talking about, and I talked to him and he approved this. I would like to go ahead and approve all 30 budget amendments at one time, or take a motion to approve all 30, and then get a second. And then if there's any questions on any of them, I can answer those at that time. But talking with Mayor Frank and some of her meetings she's had, when we try to do a roll call with every budget amendment, it can be very confusing and take a lot of time. So I think it's best if we do every budget amendment. I mean, everybody hopefully had a chance to look these over. Thoughts?
This is Rick. I move to approve.
I
I need a
second.
second. Got a
Second.
motion and a second.
Bob Smallridge.
I got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion approved. Thank you. Now, questions about our agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a suggestion.
Yes, go ahead, Tracy.
Because everybody has their microphones on, there's all this feedback just rolling. And it's going to be difficult to ask a question when you can't see other people. Therefore, I would suggest that we use the chat box. I sent a message out saying, are all of the budget members here? You know, in that box, you can say, I have a question, and hit it, and then turn your microphone on. Otherwise, you've got 20 or 22 people in the room that are all trying to talk at the same time, and you're getting constant feedback because of the microphones.
Teresa, I appreciate what you're saying, but according to our motion, if you have a question, let's ask it. And if we don't have a question, then we've got this thing approved.
I'm just
That's
saying
the-
throughout the meeting.
Okay, we got you. And I agree. Do you have any questions, anybody, about any of the budget amendments we just approved?
Does this include the lag addition meeting for the parks?
No, I'm going to put that under new business, Commissioner Fritz, because I haven't been including that in the agenda in case we do have any new business or old business, because the way with these online meetings, there's no telling what's going to come up or what we need to discuss. So I want to get everything covered if possible. So I think I would like to add that under the new business, if that's okay with you.
That'd be fine.
All right, good deal.
Any other questions? Rob, are you going to discuss our spending and hiring
Yes.
freeze?
Okay, I sent you guys an email out. There's been lots of discussion about this topic I've had discussions with CTAS, the auditors, even our law director and the mayor. And I emailed you all with my thoughts on a spending freeze. While I don't think it's necessary at this time, I do think it's something we need to monitor closely, and I want to maybe weekly and keep you all up to date as much as possible. I think it's really important that we're conservative right now with our spending the rest of the fiscal year, and the money we save now will help us build that fund, that fund balance. And next year, we're probably going to need it come July and August when our revenue collections are way down. So I'm going to email each department today after this meeting, and I'm going to ask them, pretty much tell them the same thing, that we need to be conservative as possible. And, we're all in this together. We need to try to do as much as we can so we can, when you think about it, next year in July and August, if we're not collecting revenue and sales tax, property tax collections aren't really going on then. So our cash flow could be down. So does anybody else have any thoughts? Right now, I'm not looking for a spending or hiring freeze. If we do need that, we can entertain that next month. It can be done through a resolution passed by commission, but I don't think it's necessary right now.
But we're going to try to be conservative.
I was just going to say, I agree completely with what Robbie's saying. I think it's a time to be pretty prudent with our revenue, with our expenditures and our revenue.
Thank you, Mr. Bob. Anybody else?
I certainly think it's time to discuss the fact that we really need to put some kind of hold on any major spending at this point. We have no idea and won't for months have a real handle on the kind of money that we will be receiving from whatever source.
That's a good point, Ms. Catherine. Thank you. Anybody else?
We know that, especially at the parks, we might let y'all in on this. We've had to shut down all the, the campground and all the other parks, and that's our source of revenue. And before the year is up, if this continues to linger on, it could hurt the parks and their operational status before the end of the year. So this could come back to where we'll probably may need to ask the county for assistance before the end of the year is up to help get the parks through the year if it doesn't ease up before the summer.
Right, I agree. And another department am concerned about is our tourism department, where all their revenue is based on hotel motel tax. And I mean, people aren't staying in hotels right now, so that's going to be way down also.
Chuck, that's a good point, and you'll help us keep informed on that issue, and we will deal with that when and if that comes up, okay?
Right now, we're holding steady, and we don't. We're okay, but that could be a problem if this lingers on.
Yeah, well, we'll just play it by ear. Thank you, Chuck. Any other thoughts?
All right. Hey, the next section is our proposed budgets on the agenda. I know there's been some discussion for some people that don't really want to do any of this right now and wait till we have the next live meeting, but we've really been encouraged by the comptroller's office to keep our budget calendar, try to follow it as much as possible. And in my opinion, based on the budgets we've received where a lot of departments made cuts, since our last meeting, I went in and I've reduced revenue based on the assumptions and estimates we're getting from people in the know, like CTAS and the comptroller's office. They've told us our revenue could be reduced 40 to 50%. So I took our sales tax down to what we had budgeted this year at 820,000. And so we lost quite a bit of revenue there. But even with that, even with doing that, our budget, it still has over $100,000 surplus if we approved it right now, to approve those departmental budgets. So I would like to go ahead, if you all are in agreement, until I'm requesting a motion to accept or reject proposed budgets of other funds that met budget guidelines and have reserves. And these funds are 115, 116, 122, 127, 128, and 131.
Do we have a motion to that effect?
I'll make the motion.
Who was that motion from, please?
Elvira Fuddfucker.
That's Catherine Denenberg.
You got that?
All right, I got a motion. I need a second.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Thank you, Mr. Bob. Discussion on that?
Anybody have any questions or discussion?
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Right.
Anyone opposed?
No.
Who was that note from? Denver.
That was from Dr. No.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you.
All right. Next, I would like to request a motion to accept, reject, or defer on general fund for all departments except 52,300, the property assessor, 52,600 IT, and 56,300, the senior citizens. All those budgets have met the guidelines and came in under budget.
Do we have a motion?
I move that we accept those budget categories just mentioned.
I'll
Do I need
second.
I gotta need a second. Do I have a second?
Yes.
All right, got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Catherine.
Robbie, did you say that it was all but those, or can you repeat that again?
Yes, it's a motion to accept all general fund budgets except for these departments. These are the exceptions. property assessor, 52,300, IT, 52,600, and senior citizens, 56,300. These were the three departments that came to the budget hearings.
Okay, so what is that including though?
That includes all 101. We approved the smaller funds. Now we're approving all 101. That includes the sheriff's department, not EMS. They're another fund. We were going to talk about them last, but the sheriff's department, the finance. Excuse
Okay,
me.
and those budgets are all staying at the same as they were last year?
Pretty much every one of those budgets are lower than last year at this
Okay.
point, yeah.
Okay.
Hey,
Any more
Robbie,
discussion?
Yeah,
this is Rick.
yes, sir.
Did we vote on the full motion approving all the amendments?
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
Okay, just checking.
Do you have a question about one?
No, I'm good.
Okay, yes, sir.
Any other questions?
Nope.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Check this message right here. All right, so before we move on to EMS, let's take these three one at a time. So the property assessor, I emailed the committee the letter Johnny Alley, our property assessor, sent to me for justification for increasing his budget. He's asking you to accept his new budget that will move all costs to 52,300 with a budget increase of $98,331. His revenue could potentially increase 140, or the revenue based on what he's wanting to do could increase 141,800 with this change in billing the cities. And the difference in the property assessor's budget and the new revenue could mean $43,469 for general fund. So did everybody get a copy of that letter or get to see that letter in your email?
Yes.
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 Okay, so basically it's up to the committee if they want to go this route or not. I mean, Johnny's on here too, I think, if he has anything he'd like to say.
This is Jerry again. I would like to see this budget committee maybe approve half of this and waiting with, and take the idea that maybe once Johnny gets these cities billed and that collection comes in, maybe we could act on the total amount. I guess I've got a concern whether or not he needs the entire 98,000 right now, or maybe he could do with half of that until we see how this collection is just coming in from the cities. Any ideas from anyone? Okay, with no,
That sounds reasonable, but Johnny, do you have anything you want to add to it? You'll need to unmute your microphone.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, well, with my proposal, the extra $53,000 that I've been getting in is, I've been earmarked every year to go for the reappraisal for part-time help. I think it got cut this year, but that was $53,000. That too would be returning back. So that's about, I think about $12,000 or $13,000 in the $43,000 that would be coming in. If the city's cost share is collected, I've been told for 3 years not to ask for an increase, but it's almost imperative now that I'm a point that I really like. I think the department needs that money. And I know you don't want to spend these, you want to put a freeze on it this time, but I think it's a wise investment. Now is the time for the property assessor to increase, because we're the ones that's going out. We're bringing in $45 million roughly right now. And I think this department needs that to be able to secure and bring in the return on investment. I think you'll get a return on investment from what my office will be able to do. In 1990, this office had 10 employees. And in 2000, it had the same as it's got now, with all the new splits, the growth and everything over the years. I I'll be thankful for anything that I can get, but with the monies for the city cost share that's supposed to be coming in, I think that doubles the reason why now's a good time. I'd hate to see those funds get away in the property assessor's office, not be able to utilize them. Like I said, I'm asking for about half of what's supposed to be collected. And if not, if we don't collect any, I understand, Mr. White, that's a good point. We could go on half of it until we see what gets collected, and then go at that point, double it if you wanted to do that way. In essence, I guess what Mr. White's offering is 25% what I've asked for, but, or of the 25% of the cost be collected.
Okay, you've heard Johnny's thoughts, you heard mine. Any other comments from the board?
Shane has to speak.
Shane Val.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We did speak about this last time when Johnny first told us that we were going to be giving an increase to the cities for the services. Johnny kind of answered part of my question when he said he was okay with what the chairman's suggestion would be. But just so we can say we discussed it here, Johnny, have you had any contact yet with the cities, and what answers have you gotten from them?
Yeah, I contacted all the cities actually before that meeting, and of course the big drivers. I've not talked as much to Clinton as I did Oak Ridge, but what they had initially said was they could understand paying it, and they wanted to research it though to make sure that what I was telling them was the actual, because it is a big change for them. But they said they would rather my office get it just to go to the general fund, because they're going to get a return on investment. They know I'm going to be down there shaking the bushes, getting them some money back for what they're been paying us. But that said, I mean, we try to do the best we can anyway, but there are areas that we're deficient in that I think that the additional monies would help us, find other monies. That being in personal property reviews, going out and especially inside the DOE areas, also some retail reviews, audit reviews we need to be doing through our personal property section. I think it's going to reveal us a lot of money too.
That's what I was going to bring up, Johnny, is I was under the impression that the more money you got, the more people you may be able to have out there in the field be bringing in more revenue.
That's exactly right. To a point. I mean, I guess you can flood it to the point where it's not. And as always, if I see that I've got too much or something's going on, that we make some changes that it seems like that I've got extra. I always turn in extra at the end of the year. I mean, I don't waste it. We've run really tight in here ever since I've been in office. And like I said, we're operating for less people than they had in 1990 in this office. But I'll do whatever y'all want. But I would really appreciate the consideration of awarding what I've asked for. And if, like I said, on into it the way I see it, if we don't need it and we're not dragging in any money off of it, and it's not a good return, getting a good return on investment, then if we needed to, I'd like to change back at that point.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Shane. Thank you, Johnny. Ms. Teresa.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I have to be on the side of Jerry White and saying that half of the money at this time. And it's because, especially what we're all going through right now, you and I may be pinching pennies and watching where every dollar goes, but so are the county municipalities. I think from a financial point of view, this is going to be a very, very ugly year when it comes to bankruptcies. People aren't going to be able to afford to pay their taxes. They're having issues paying their mortgage right now, and tending to other bills, and financial things for their families. So when the discussion originally started with putting a spending freeze out there, I'm all for it. And unfortunately, I'm not looking to, even though you think the money may be coming in, I don't think that it's fair to say, well, we're going to be able to bill out too. You just don't know what these cities are, what they're facing. And I'm good for half of it, but not the whole amount, not right now.
Someone else got a comment?
I'll
If
just
I
go
could
ahead
step-
and make the motion to move forward with the half proposal and see where we are once the money starts coming in. Because I know that Johnny's department certainly is in need of what he's asking for.
I'll second that.
Got a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No,
Motion carries. Thank you.
Everyone, can I get an official roll call to see who is in the meeting that are the voting members?
Yes. Do you want me to do that, Brian?
Yes, please, Robbie. We need to get that recorded.
All righty.
Why don't you have them all send it through on chat?
We
So,
only have 6 members.
I'm going to call everybody's name out and are we doing a roll call for this vote, Brian, or are you just wanting to do a roll call to see who's here?
I believe we're supposed to have a roll call for who's here.
All right, Denver.
Here.
Mr. Smallridge.
Here.
Mr. Fritz.
here,
Mr. Meredith.
here,
Ms. Scott.
Here.
Swadette, Dannenberg, sorry.
Here,
I'm missing. Commissioner White's here, he's right in front of me. Shane Val.
Here.
Hey,
That's 8, that's our members. All righty.
Thank you. Thank you.
thank you, Brian.
So we just approved letting the property assessor have half of what he was asking for. Catherine made the motion and Teresa seconded it, and there was no opposition. Everybody approved 100% from what I didn't hear any no's.
I voted no, Robbie.
Rick Meredith, no. Okay, thanks, Rick. I thought I might have heard one, but I couldn't tell. All right. So the next budget we're moving to is the IT budget. It honestly, in the IT budget, Brian is showing an increase of $7,129, all in code 399, other contracted services. All of these charges are for necessary IT renewals or services that we are already paying for currently. This increase is, what we're doing is getting everything in the budget at the beginning of the year instead of once every 3 months. Brian has to come before commission and ask for money out of unassigned fund balance to pay for this. So we're trying to get everything in the budget, and it's an increase of $7,129.
I need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Got a motion, I need a second.
Second.
Got a motion, a second. Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, and the last person I have for the general fund budget is the senior center budget. She's, once again, she didn't put this in her budget, but she is asking for the $30,000 for part-time employees. Last year, the committee approved a one-time increase, and so that was before the budget committee and the budget hearings, and so now we have to vote on whether we want to do that or not.
Do I have a motion? Do I have a motion to increase the senior citizen assistant for $30,000? Do I have a motion?
Doesn't sound like it. I will say this too, this is something we can address later in the budget in next year, in the fiscal year. If we see our revenues have picked back up and we're doing well, it might be something we want to do then. And it's possible to add an employee. It's possible to do a lot of things during the budget season. So, we can wait on this also.
And this item dies for a lack of a motion. Next.
All right. The last thing on the agenda is for budget proposals is the EMS budget. Nathan presented two budgets, but we are focusing on budget number one, proposal number one right now. This is the budget Nathan hopes will be passed, as it will allow him to run his department more efficiently and create more revenue. This budget does have a deficit budget of $169,212, but Fund 118 has $238,000 reserve with a possible $200,000 increase to that reserve this year. So Nathan's on here too, if you have any questions for him.
Do we have a motion? Do we have a motion to approve?
I'd like to hear more. I'll make the motion for discussion purposes.
Got a motion, I need a second.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Discussion, please.
Chuck wants to speak.
All right, Mr. Chuck, go ahead.
No, I'm after EMS is over.
Oh, okay,
Okay,
sorry.
thanks. Any more discussions on the EMS?
I'd like to hear from Nathan about the proposal.
Nathan, are you with us?
Yes, sir, I am.
Talk to us.
Yes, sir. So really, there's three main things that are the difference for this budget proposal. There was the adding of a position for the EMS2. This would be an operations supervisor. This would be the person that would be in charge in my absence, but they would also be over the operations portion of our department. It is a position we had once before, but it is not a position that we currently have now. The second thing was we were looking to add an additional ALS day truck. This is a paramedic EMT staff day truck. It would operate Monday through Friday. This truck would be used dual purpose, both 911 calls and convalescent, because there are some convalescent calls that do require paramedic skill set. So there are transfers out of the hospital. There are ventilator transports that we do that do require paramedic skill set. And we are still having times where when we're responding to calls, we may not have a 911 ambulance available, that we're sending a convalescent ambulance to that call. It has gotten better this year on the use, the decreased use of 911 ambulances to do convalescent calls. As far as I can gather, because we don't have all of the history information, but this is going to be the lowest year we have used 911 ambulances on convalescent calls since I've been with the department in 2002. So that is a trend in the right direction for sure, but we still are using the primary 911 ambulances on convalescent calls from time to time. So this truck would help decrease that, but also have greater opportunity for increasing revenue. That truck will pay for itself. We are still turning down calls. We are still turning down and giving away convalescent calls. So this truck would pay for itself. And then, of course, was the modified 24/72 schedule. Still wanting to move away from that 24, 48-hour schedule. This brings in an option that's cheaper. So it brings in, it decreases the amount for a traditional 24/72 to using less people, making it a modified schedule. Instead of needing 13 new people, you only need 9. Those are the three main changes, or the 3 additional requests that we made.
Thank you, Nathan. Any other questions? Nathan, I've got a question. Jerry White, I've got a question for you. Your operations supervisor, wouldn't that be taking part of your job?
Well, right now I'm playing both roles. I'm doing both roles. I'm being the director plus the operations supervisor, where that hasn't always been the case. We
Okay, Nathan, why couldn't you continue doing that?
the amount of workload, it's not conducive to be able to do all of the job requirements that I have as a director, with all of the commitment needed to be an operations supervisor. There's just not enough time to be able to do both of those whole. I got a perspective. When I was deputy director of operations, we actually had two operational deputy directors. We have an operations deputy director, which is what I served in is for ALS 911, and we had an operations supervisor for ALS, which was Brian Schroeder. So we used to have two operations supervisors back in 2008. I brought that down to one when I became director, but right now we have zero.
Nathan, I appreciate that explanation, but I'm going to ask this board to, let's table this until our full commission meeting, and let's talk some more about this operations supervisor. Would that, how would that be with our board?
I agree to table it.
I'll second that if that's a motion.
I've got a motion and a second that we table this until our full commission meeting. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll table this until the third Monday night of this month. Thank you.
Hey, I want to explain something. Commissioner Fritz, real quick. Section C says new business. The agenda is actually wrong. Sorry. But the mayor had requested to be on the agenda with the information from the governor about the support grant. And that was supposed to be C, but that can also be under new business, Mayor. I'm sorry. I don't know how that got left off. I put it in the agenda in the back and the section C, but I didn't put it on the very front of the agenda. So we can do both of those under new business if that's okay.
Yeah, I let the mayor go first.
Mayor, are you here?
I'm here.
Okay, go ahead and speak about your, the governor's grant.
Sure, I had mentioned this to once before, and with the COVID-19 outbreak, we now, the governor included in his budget, essentially doubled that allocation for cities and counties from 1 million to 2 million. Anderson County's share of this allocation will be $1,093,102. I wanted to make Budget Committee aware as well as Operations Committee aware because we will need to get some agreement and pass some resolutions. I'm hoping perhaps we can pass some resolutions maybe next month. The distributions will be available after July 1, 2020. And then we will have until sometime in 2021 to get those spent. I think that's 6/30/2021. You have a long time to apply for them. There is a window. I think you have to apply by April 30th of 2021. But it would be good to go ahead and maybe get ahead of the game, or if we don't want to do it in May, maybe look in June or even July. I know there are some various projects, like for instance, some of the commissioners would like a single entrance. But those permitted spending categories are there in your agenda pack. They are for IT hardware upgrades. They're for capital maintenance. So these are projects that should focus on maintaining the current facilities, so that they don't want you to go out and build something, but they want it to be used for something if you have some HVAC issues or something you want to improve. Utility system upgrades, road projects, public safety. So this would include equipment purchases for law enforcement, fire, EMS. We don't have our own school buses. We contract that out, but that's also eligible. And then any COVID-19 response. A lot of the COVID, though, I think is going to be covered by other agencies. So for instance, Karen at EMA is going to be distributing to the various departments what FEMA is collecting for in terms of reimbursement. Department of Justice is also doing some reimbursement. There's kind of some different vehicles for that. So we might want to just focus on those items 1 through 5. And what I discussed with Robbie, and this was just for you to start really thinking about this as you do the budget during the budget process, you've got a list of capital needs that are in the budget packet. And this would be a good way to not dip into your budget, but fund those needs, through this grant application. And that was just a suggestion I had as you all are going through the budget process. That might be something to keep in mind, that you might not have to fund those or come up with the money for those, but maybe take advantage of this opportunity. So that's really all I had on that, unless you have any questions.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
Any comments from the board? Moving on.
Commissioner Fritz is next with his.
Commissioner Fritz, Chuck.
Yes, the Conservation Board met Monday, and because we had basically it's going to have to be an urgent need for us to get this before the Budget Committee, then also before the full commission, because it has to be advertised in the papers and everything of that nature. It's been several years since we've had any type of a rate increase at our campgrounds. And we want the campground to be self-sufficient, not to have to fall back on the taxpayers to have to pay for the people that camp up there to have to pay anything for the people that camp there. So we had Stephanie for tourism to help us out with it. And when they did a lot of the background checks on what a lot of the area campgrounds charge and things of that nature. And we were way behind a lot of the areas and their rates. And so we are proposing a rate increase. And the reason we have to come before the budget and full commission is that we're planning on using a lot of this for our revenue for the Conservation Board. If we didn't do that, we wouldn't have to ask for this approval. But with the rate increase, we are still staying below everyone else throughout the whole area. To give you an idea, is that for the RV sites, we're planning on going increasing the rate from $21 a night to $30 a night, where the average increase for the other areas are anywhere from 35, and that's with taxes for Anderson County, with all the taxes involved. With a lot of the other areas, you're talking anywhere from $35 to $45, and that does not include taxes. For the group long-term rates, we were presently at $295. We're talking about increasing it to $350, and that includes all your taxes and everything. And the outside rates are $450 to $455, and that does not include taxes. So see, as you can see, we're still far below everyone else in the area. And then our long-term over winter storage, we're talking about going from $100 a month to $150 a month. And that's helped stay on it. And we're presently got a long waiting list on people that's wanting to do this. And then our tent sites, we're going to talk about going from $15 to $20. But these right here is the rate increases we're talking about going for various sites for the campground. And again, this is the probably the first rate increase they've had for the campground area up there in several years. And out there is just to help offset the cost of operating the campground and paying for the upkeep of the campground and everyone else. So this right here is what we're asking for approval from the Budget Committee for these rate increases.
on this?
I have a question.
I'm asking Chuck, do we need a motion on this?
Yes.
Okay, question, Teresa?
Yeah, Chuck, the RV locations, does that include electricity, you know, the full hookup, electricity and water?
That's correct.
And you're looking to charge, was it $30?
The RV sites are,
30.
yeah, 30, going up from $21 to $30 a night.
Are these locations normally, do you have any vacancies at them or no?
Generally, during the peak seasons, we're at 100% capacity.
I mean, I would suggest that you actually look to be more comparable and compatible with the surrounding areas during the peak season. You know, when the leaves are changing colors, everybody wants to come out our way to go look at the leaves. And during the summer and turning into fall, Windrock is packed. And I'm in full agreement to increase the rates. I just think you should increase them a bit more.
Thank you, Teresa. Anybody
Thanks.
else?
Yes.
Go ahead, please.
Chuck, what's the difference in amenities other than the power with our campgrounds compared to others in the area?
Basically, what we, Stephanie looked at, everything are pretty much the same. So the only difference is, you know, a lot of the campgrounds, they don't charge the, you know, the taxes and the different things like that up front. Where our fees includes the, you know, the taxes and the various fees included.
Well, then I would agree with Commissioner Scott that I think that the increases need to be more online with other campgrounds. We can, and I think including the taxes is a very good idea. But if the others are so much more without taxes, I certainly think that a serious consideration needs to be given to a higher increase than what you're asking for.
Linder made a motion to.
Well, I can pass that on to the board, you know, for consideration. We'd at least like to get these passed.
Thank you, thank you, Chuck. I've got a motion on the floor and I've got a second that we approve this as presented. Any more discussion?
Yes, I'd like to say this, I guess the Conservation Board has looked at this very carefully and this is their recommendation. So nothing would prevent us in the future from doing something additional to this, but I would support the Conservation Board on this recommendation.
I agree.
As a matter of fact, we are looking at getting the state involved. Matter of fact, they've held off on the grant process right now because of the virus. And since we have such a large backlog of people wanting to camp at our campground, and since this is a tourism thing, we've got Stephanie involved. I mean, she's been a blessing to us right now. And we're looking at, since we have the extra land available, to increasing the size of the campground and getting people involved and to see how much we can apply for the grants and stuff to increase the number of campsites that are available up there. So that's something that we're looking at for the future of the campground in that area. So
Okay. Thank you, Chuck. I've got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries that we approve the rate increase for the Anderson County campgrounds. Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you.
May I ask a question?
Go ahead, Ms. Teresa.
So what Robbie presented to you was EMS's budget. There were two options that were presented. And the action you took was to send it to full commission. So I guess I'm just asking to make sure I understand, because normally you all approve what your recommendation is as part of each budget process, and then you take the whole budget and present it to commission. And so I just want to make sure that that you're sending it to full commission, so full commission can provide input on what you would like, on what they would like to see in your budget proposal. I'm just trying to clarify the action.
Mayor, we have, we've listened to your first 5 spending categories.
She's talking about the EMS budget.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sending it back to
I'm sorry.
commission.
Mayor, me personally, I would like to talk with Nathan a little bit about his duties and why he cannot continue to perform his duties without hiring an assistant, an operation supervisor. That's the only reason that I asked to postpone it till we could get a little bit more information as to why that he needs an operation supervisor. That was my only concern.
Okay. And I was just asking from if that makes sense, because this is just part of, this isn't something that's being approved. It's part of your budget approval. So I just wanted to clarify, that's how you wanted it. You wanted maybe full commission to decide that and then come back to, I guess, support your position from the budget committee when you put the full budget together.
I think the full commission ought to decide that, Mayor.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay? Thank you, ma'am. If nothing else, our budget meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Anything else?
I think Commissioner Fritz has something.
Yes.
He's written on the chat board.
Sorry, I'm trying to check that every now and then.
That's, something I brought up at our last meeting, and I want to keep everyone in to remember, is that I raised the issue and a question about the workload of our law director and the assistance help that he needs in his office. I made a comment that when I first came on board that we had attorney and an assistant attorney in that position. He is overworked. He does basically doesn't take a day off. And either we need to look at getting someone else, like an assistant attorney for that position, or do our part to cut back workload in that office. But one of the way or the other, we need to keep that in the back of our minds to do something to assist in that office there.
Thank you, Chuck. I've been thinking about that. I would like to see us redefine Jay Yeager's job description and see if we could cut back some of the duties that he's doing. I think this office is getting bigger than what we ever intended to do. And I'm sure Jay's doing more work than he's probably getting paid for. But maybe we could redefine his job description and do exactly what you're saying. So let's put this on the agenda for the full commission or operations or maybe whoever's got a job description for Jay. Let's look at it and see if we're expecting more out of him than what that he agreed to start with. That would be my thoughts on that. Anybody else got a thought on that?
Yeah, not on that. Can I comment on something else? I just like to commend Robbie on with his work on the budget. The information was well organized, and I think it made it possible for us to go through our budget deliberations today much more smoothly than maybe at times than we have in the past. So I just like to thank Robbie for his work on the budget.
There you go. Thank you, Mr. Bob. Anybody else? This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.